Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting to be that time of year where fantasy football is coming around. So I started looking at the fantasy rankings, and there are some pretty shocking rankings for all kinds of players at all kinds of positions. Today, I'm focused on the receivers. I picked five receivers that I think are pretty undervalued based on where they're ranked right now, and I just wanted to share that. So let's get right into it with the first one, which is Tyreek Hill. And ESPN has Tyreek as wide receiver 13, which is crazy because for the past 5 years or so, he's been a consensus top five receiver every year. I know he had a bad year last year. Obviously, Tua being hurt was part of that. Even when Tua was there, he struggled. Devon Achane was the only big producer on the Dolphins last year. But the thing is, Tyreek still has the ability. You saw it last year. He still has the incredible burst and the strength, the explosiveness. It's all there. I think that his head wasn't quite in it last year as much, and he was kind of clowning around, and that reflected. So obviously, you have to factor that in because if he's still clowning around this year, then he's not going to produce at the level you want. But he's also somebody who might end up getting traded at some point in the season. We'll have to stay tuned. But I just I find it hard to believe that he'll have another year as bad as last year was. Well, he can still play at the level that I know he still can. So he's definitely undervalued at wide receiver 13. Up next, I have Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs' young speedster, the Tyreek Hill replacement. ESPN has him at wide receiver 23, which I think he's got a lot more potential than that. Hollywood Brown obviously is very fragile, and Rasheed Rice, there's a lot of uncertainty there because of his torn up knee. He's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play right away, but Xavier Worthy really came on toward the end of the year. Obviously, Travis Kelsey is older than ever, and last year was his least productive season of his career, I think. Uh, that's probably a trend that's going to continue. So more is going to fall on Worthy to produce. And in the playoffs, we saw that. In the playoffs, he averaged 6 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown per playoff game over the course of the three that he played in. Throughout the regular season, he just kept getting better. And I think that there's going to be a year two bump for him for sure. He also gets a few carries in some games. He will get a few rushing yards, potentially a rushing touchdown here or there. So he's a dual threat, and he's the fastest player in the league. So with a cannon like Mahomes' arm, why would you not want Worthy on your team, right? The third receiver I have is Jerry Judy. Now, Jerry Judy is an interesting player. He was drafted ahead of CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. As hard to believe as that is, they were all in the same draft class. He was taken by the Denver Broncos. Obviously, he's on the Browns now. ESPN has him rated at wide receiver 29. He had a really good year last year. He averaged 5 catches for 72 yards a game. He had 4 touchdowns, and he's faster than you think. His longest catch was an 89-yard touchdown. He's faster than you think. He's a first round talent, and I think it's starting to show. Obviously, the Browns' quarterback situation is messed up, but with Flacco back there, ideally, like when he had Jameis Winston obviously is a turnover machine, but Jameis, he's also explosive with the big plays, you know? So they're going to lose a game in spectacular fashion, but we don't care about that in fantasy football. We care about the numbers. And with Jameis as the quarterback, Jerry Judy was just, he was tearing it up. He was, average. I think when Jameis was the quarterback, Judy was averaging over 100 yards a game. It was pretty damn good. So if Flacco can just get him the ball, or whoever starts, just get him the ball, get him targets, get him catches, he will do the rest. He's really better after the catch than you might think. I like Jared Judy a lot at wide receiver 29. Coming in next is George Pickens, he is ESPN's wide receiver 31. Now, I know George Pickens can be a bit of a clown, and that's a turnoff, but he produced pretty well considering he had Russell Wilson, who has proven to be pretty much a disaster at this point at quarterback, throwing in the ball, and Justin Fields. It was just a mess with two different guys who couldn't really effectively pass the ball. And George Pickens was the wide receiver one. Now he's on Dallas. CeeDee Lamb is obviously the number one target. So George Pickens is getting less attention. He's 6'4". He can jump out of the gym. He's going up and getting those 50-50 balls. He averaged 4 for 64 targets and catches a game last year, or not, excuse me, 4 catches for 64 yards a game last year. And he had 4 touchdowns. I think that the catches will probably stay around 4, maybe get up to 5. But that 64, You could see that bump up to the 70s, 80s, and I think he could easily have double the touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. Absolutely. Dak is we need Dak to stay healthy in Dallas, but the Cowboys' run game is pathetic. They have Miles Sanders and Javante Williams, and they drafted a guy named Alfred Blue, who hopefully will pan out. But the Cowboys are going to need to be pass heavy. CeeDee Lamb will obviously be the number one producer, but I think Pickens could easily average 4 for 70 a game and have 8 or 9 touchdowns over the course of the season. He's just a great big play threat. He averages a lot of yards per catch. He just needs to keep his head on straight, and Dak needs to stay healthy. And coming in at number 5, my last receiver on the list is Debo Samuel. Debo, for those of you who don't know, is on Washington now. So he's got Jaden Daniels throwing him the ball. And who doesn't love Jaden Daniels after what he did last year? I know Debo is kind of old. He's 29, but Debo's coming off a crappy year. He's not too old to be good. And I know for certain that Debo is one of those players that takes a lot of pride in his on the field performance. Obviously, most players do, but Debo, I think, exceptionally so. It drives him crazy when he doesn't play up to his expectation. He's in a new setting. I think he's going to get the ball more in a wide receiver. What obviously in San Francisco he was used as a running back in a lot of situations. I think he's going to be lining up out wide more. I think he's going to get a good amount of targets and he will have a bounce back year. And wide receiver 43 is just that's essentially a bench player. Debo, he should be a solid flex or even maybe a wide receiver too. So there's a lot of good value there. Anyways, that's my list for today. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know, who do you think is undervalued. It doesn't even have to be a wide receiver. Obviously, we're talking wide receivers, but feel free to mention any player that you think is undervalued. Thanks, guys.